It is 6 o'clock on the dot. Like to call to order the November 17th meeting, Nantucket Parks and Recreation Commission. As I said, the meeting is audio and video recorded, and I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda for this evening.
Second.
So who moved?
Second? Second. Motion passes, and the agenda is adopted. Next is the approval of minutes from our last meeting, October 20th. And I'd like to make a motion again to adopt those minutes. Any objection? If there's no objection, then the minutes are adopted. Public comment. Not sure if there's anything for that. Yes.
Do you have one thing to say, and I sent an email to all of you, but there's a required training session for open meeting law next Monday or Tuesday. So if one of you, we'd like to have one of you from the commission attend one of these.
I'm away.
Cheryl's away and Maggie are unavailable. So
I'm afraid, Madam Chair, I will not be on island from tomorrow morning through next week.
Okay.
Thanksgiving. And I've sat through the meetings before.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll
Where's
have
this
to schedule.
meeting, Monday or Tuesday?
I think it's in the morning, 9.
No, Monday's 3:30 to 5:30.
2:30 to 5:30.
And
Tuesday,
then Tuesday's 9:30 to 11.
And it's more about the update in the public law.
Yes.
Open meeting law is definitely a part of it, but the legislature changed a lot of the public records requirements. It's a huge document. And so town council's coming in to give an updated version of everything from minutes to the open meeting law.
Will there be a second session besides the two on one day?
We talked about it probably. There's one on Monday and one on Tuesday. We talked, it was a bad week because it's Thanksgiving, so we'll probably do one again in January. Now, it takes effect January 1st, so we kind of want to sneak one in, and then we'll probably have another one in January. And we're going to record it, too. We'll record the one on Tuesday, so that way at least.
Because I won't be back until February,
Oh.
so I can't volunteer.
So where's this meeting going to be?
It's here,
I think
downstairs.
it's right
Downstairs,
Okay.
in the meeting room, yeah.
I'll try and make it 3:30 Monday then.
Okay.
Oh, thanks.
Good.
I'll let
Thank you.
Eric
Thank
know.
you.
And you remember that from here to home to write it down.
Thank you, Jack.
David will send you an update.
If no further public comment on that, then move on to new business. I'd like to make a motion to welcome our first guest. The request to renew Super Soccer Stars classes at Children's Beach, and that's Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Natchez. I run a program called Super Soccer Stars, and we have been running classes at Children's Beach since 2015, and we're hoping to do it again. We run skills classes for mostly toddlers and a few one-on-ones for older kids up to 12, but primarily focused from 2 to 7. And we have a request for Monday and Tuesday afternoons and Saturday and Sunday mornings. Saturday is a new request. The other is just a rollover the schedule from last year, so I was going to coordinate with David and see what was available on Sunday morning.
Yeah. Any discussion?
I would just like to add that Sarah's been here before representing the Super Soccer Stars, and has had a very good track record. It's an early morning program.
Yeah, it's afternoons on Tuesdays and Mondays and Tuesdays, and early mornings on Saturdays and
Saturdays
Sundays.
and Sundays, that's
Yeah.
right.
And where is it taking place?
On about half the grass area near the playground at Children's Beach Field.
Okay. Just was checking to make sure there wasn't a conflict with the new addition.
Any further questions for Sarah? Any other? Or-
I have, are there any scheduling conflicts for the timeline?
And the Saturday, we're still working on programming for that, so we'll let Sarah know what's going on with that. But in general, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday are free of conflict.
Okay.
And your afternoon programs are Sunday, Monday, or Monday and Tuesday?
Monday, Tuesday afternoon, and Saturday, Sunday mornings.
What time in the afternoons?
3 to 5:30 on Mondays and 3:30 to 6:15 on Tuesdays. Is this helpful if I pass?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, that would be great.
Oh, I don't need, that's
We
fine.
can share.
Make sure the commissioners have it.
one more.
Just make sure the commissioners have it.
Thank you. Here we go.
In your space, just for the discussion, so new members can know, it's a small part of the children's beach
Right.
grass area. It's-
Yeah, we have
it
really
doesn't take
small
over.
classes, about 4 to 8 kids, so we use a small area of the field.
It's kind of basically that stretch from the walkway down the fence towards the
Stage.
beach, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
I think that would be a great way to get more kids involved in it, getting out and doing things. And then for the Saturdays, you're just going to coordinate timing with David.
Absolutely, just to make sure there are no conflicts.
Not sure what else I'm
All
supposed
right.
to say.
The idea would be now just to request a motion to approve.
Yeah, okay.
And
A motion
would
to
anyone
approve.
like to make the motion to approve?
I would like to motion to approve
I'll second that.
Super Soccer Stars.
So
And
the
all
motion,
those in favor?
aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Motion passes.
There you go.
Excellent. We're
Thank you
looking
very
forward
much.
to it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Well,
Thank you so
time is
much.
going so fast, Thanksgiving's
It's
around the corner.
Thanksgiving's
You
next
think we
week.
should start getting the summer clothes out now?
I like your optimism.
That's right. Oh, that's right, February. Gosh.
Yeah, we have to go through a trial first.
Thank you.
On to our second guest, which is a discussion about trash at Children's Beach with Mark Boyd. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Talking trash?
I'm like,
Is that what we came here for?
evidently there's been some discussion of trash, so I'm here to jump right in.
Welcome.
At our last meeting, there was discussion, because there's refuse apparently being left behind from the children's snack concession there. And there was discussion about moving perhaps trash cans closer to that area, and maybe putting others in place, just to prevent the kind of refuse that's left over from that stand.
Yeah, if you're done.
Oh, yeah.
So I did try to get a little bit of an idea. I watched the video and conversation from last month's meeting, and then talked to different ones on the staff, and you know, we have a process, we have a schedule. I think you all, some of you were here, some of you weren't. Maybe that the process is a timing issue as much as anything, and then maybe a location issue. Maybe we can do something like our crews come by Children's Beach shortly after that early session.
So about what time is it?
They're there before 8.
Okay, 7:30-ish?
Yeah, it varies
7:45,
depending on
something like that.
you know, how much stuff they're dealing with in the morning, because they do the core first, and they start to head out to the other areas, and that's one of the first ones that they hit after they've done the core. So that's been the procedure, and so it sounded like, speaking with the other staff that's been doing this for years, that they're really not sure how they can do the schedule any different, because that's established and it's working that way. But they did feel like the trash cans were moved a little bit around, and maybe I heard there was a suggestion to maybe move it back closer to the band shell, and that they all thought that was probably something that could help. To what degree, we'll find out, I suppose.
So
But
what about those compostable, or not compostable, but the smashy ones?
the big belly, the ones that are automatic, they're there.
At Children's Beach?
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, they got some, they're over near the playground.
Yes.
Are they gonna move those over near the bandstand then?
We haven't made any final decision. We just talked about the concept in general about having a trash can or trash cans or, something closer. I heard the light, near the light, where there's a light post right there.
There is a
Right, that
light
seems
post
to be
there,
the-
right?
And there used to be one, I heard at one point, maybe, I don't know if it's experimental or just ended up that way. And they, felt like maybe moving that back. That's the discussion I heard. Maybe that would be worthwhile.
I think maybe there wasn't as much candy and things sold at one time as there were.
Yeah,
there is
that's,
now or
that's,
something.
an-
and
that's, an issue with the concessionaire. I mean, you'll hear that.
Of course, the
the
trash
next
doesn't bother me
phase that-
so much as broken glass.
Certainly, that was that
seemed a
was that
little more-
part of an issue? I didn't hear that part. I
Well,
heard
She asked to pick up broken
candy.
glass and stuff in the mornings, and I thought that was more of
well that's a little bit more of a difference.
thing.
But we certainly anything with safety is important to to make sure we maintain that. But I didn't hear that issue. I heard
Yeah.
ice cream, candy, and basic general wrappers and things like that were blowing around. Glass, we'd have to look at something a little bit different.
So
The
maybe
big
we
bellies
could do
generally.
like one of those, instead of moving the big bellies necessarily, if they're effective where they are, to maybe look at something like putting a trash and a glass together. I'm not sure why there would be a lot of glass there, because usually.
I know we try to limit
know
it.
what I mean?
Actually, it's not encouraged there.
I would imagine the glass is from passersby late at night who are essentially maybe drinking
gotcha.
or teenagers who are there late at night, and that I would imagine that kind of refuse is going to be really hard to control. But
Yeah, you're not gonna
certainly,
get that in a can.
but certainly having cans closer
A basket,
by.
one of those basketball things over it.
Yeah.
Make it into a
Maybe.
game.
Break
Shoot.
more glass, yikes.
But certainly having it closer by would encourage whoever's there to not have to walk to the playground or toward the beach to dispose of it if it was closer.
More trash cans, true. Fine.
Yeah, that's. I think the big bellies. I don't know if you've heard or not, but and chime in if it is. My understanding was that they needed to be on a hard surface, not on the grass.
Okay.
So
Okay. Like a platform kind of.
yeah, they do. Like some of the controls can be affected. I
See,
think.
one problem where they are near the playground is they drive up to them to pick them up. And they're driving up that little hill
Mhm.
right where the benches are. All the people that are sitting on the benches are driving right by them to pick up that trash, turn around and go back out. And I think that's dangerous for the people that are there early in the morning. Especially if there's any little kids with them driving that truck all the way to the playground.
Aren't there a couple of big bellies in Coffin Park? That kind of by, maybe it's the wrong park. Right by Something Natural.
Yeah,
That's
kind of-
Coffin
That's Coffin Park. I think there's two big bellies in there, and
Yeah,
that's
I'm not
grass.
sure. Maybe it is.
Maybe we can go check it, because maybe it's just a platform that DPW put out, so we could do the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
at Children's.
But there is pavement over near the bandstand if they wanted to put them
Right.
there.
Right.
And they can drive in there and out without so much danger. Although I suppose
Yeah.
early in the morning you got your dance going on over there. That's a problem.
Yeah, it's hard to make that reverse sound musical.
I mean, we can do. I mean, I don't know how the allotment of big bellies. If they need to be. I don't know what the plan is for location-wise, but we can look at either one. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
if it gets more trash in the trash bins, I think that's what everybody would like.
Right.
Right. So I think just getting some receptacle over there, and then we can just sort of stay in touch with the early morning people that are there, and
Mhm.
just get some feedback from them as to how it's working.
Right. Yeah.
And
And then-
that way
and-
we can start small, with the easiest thing, and move a few
Right.
receptacles over there, and then
Right.
if we need to look at it further.
Right. We can adapt. As we see it's necessary. And then the next part. So that's the town side, and the next part would be the concessionaires part of it, and then you'll have that discussion next with a new bid for the concession. So
Okay.
Before we get onto that, just going back, haven't we made it in the past part of the concessionaire's responsibility to police and pick up some of their
Around their own
around their
area.
own area. Are we
Yes.
well beyond the scope of that radius in this discussion? I wasn't
think
here
so.
for the first
Well,
discussion of the trash,
They
but
seem to be talking a bit about it being actually in the bandstand.
Okay, so it's where the
But-
kids hang
but
around.
it's all product that is, for the most part, hasn't been purchased by the concessionaire. Okay.
Well,
And it is part of their contract, yes.
yeah, this
In
is,
fairness, it
yeah.
could be, or if it's being littered in the evening, it could have been purchased on Easy Street
To,
and
to,
walked down.
to your point about bottles or anything like that, but knowing what the product is and knowing what's being sold by the concessionaire, it's a very, if it's light trash, it usually doesn't make it from Broad Street, Easy Street that far. It gets eaten by the time they're by the yacht club.
Thrown out, so,
Right.
yeah, exactly, it gets thrown
That's
out at
it.
the yacht club.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. So we're pretty sure whatever is going on is being purchased by the, from the concessionaire. And we just, I would say, that we can try trash cans, but we just bring it back to the notice of the agreement. But it looks like we're going into a new agreement with someone else. And
Maybe, could I add something to this discussion before we go to the
Oh, yeah,
items?
please.
Sure, absolutely.
We've been experimenting with, like, I don't call them furniture, but trash can furniture at the larger South Shore beaches, like Cisco, Nantucket. It's 3 trash bins in a wooden container, you know, like that you can just push. It shelters the trash cans. Do you think that might be attractive or something more attractive at Children's instead of more trash cans? Maybe we try one of
But
those.
those big bellies look good. They don't
They look good, yeah.
look good at all.
Yeah.
They
Need
look
you
better
on the
than the barrels.
HTC.
That's right. Yeah, I know. Oh, I know. I know. Don't,
Can we vote him
don't let them know that. No, I was just trying to say, instead of more barrels like that are attractive, we've been doing these nice wooden containers. You know, they're this long that have the trash bins in them, so they're concealed, and people just put their trash through a swinging door. And it says, you know, cans, glass, trash. Maybe we could try them.
Have they been effective at people
Really,
using them?
really effective.
That's
As a
great.
matter of fact,
And is the flat kept clean? Because I know sometimes that's like an issue for people to put their trash.
Clean.
It's like if it's-
ish.
well, just so you know, those they're not lasting very well.
Right, and I will say, the ones that we put
They
out
may be able to,
were made by DPW as a trial, so they made the first ones for Dionis, and then for Cisco, and then for Nantucket, and they made them in shop. Like, they purchased like a kit, and they put them together, and then they had to saw the top off and they made their own. But we're gonna try to purchase more industrial grade, for the,
Yeah.
you know,
What's happening to them?
wear and tear.
the type of wood that they use is it's just doesn't, it's not made to hold up. It's very thin,
Okay.
and there's not a whole lot of structure
Because
to them.
they sell those fences that you can buy them for about $200. Yeah, around $250 for those 8-foot sections.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've purchased some fencing as well. I mean, as a lot of you probably know, a lot of stuff we purchase off island is not really built to a standard that
Right.
works here. And they really have taken a beating. And we just don't, it's hard to repair them because there's just nothing left of them when they're done. When they're done, they're junk.
That's too bad, because the one in Nantucket looks
Goes
good.
with,
I see that one all the time.
Was it the fence or the trash enclosure?
I thought you had an enclosure in Nantucket.
Yeah,
That's
so I
what-
think we had both.
Well, an enclosure for the porta potties.
Right, okay, maybe that's what I've been
Yeah,
looking at.
and
Right.
those have been successful.
Right.
But for the trash cans, they were these off the shelf type,
Right.
Yeah,
you know,
Right.
street
we
furniture.
had both out in
Right.
Nantucket.
We did have both in Nantucket,
And
Right.
both at Cisco.
the problem was the usability. I mean,
My comment.
they looked great. I mean, I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they did a good
They were
job.
flimsy.
Talking about but
They're flimsy.
that's
Yeah.
So would it be
The best
possible
word.
for them to make this, using the same pattern,
Mhm.
and just make it out of more appropriate materials for here? I
We're-
mean, you
we're
could
looking
pick
at
up some
that.
exterior plywood, throw some tar paper on it, shingle it up, and then have that, a front that had
Yeah, we're looking at
sort of
that
hinging.
to see if someone will be able to, because we have a number of them that we're looking at doing. And so the standard that's available lifting them up and stuff that doesn't work. These flip doors was a nice idea, but even the hardware was very
They fell off, yeah.
very weak because it just as soon as somebody pushed it one way, it pulls the screws out, and they're really small hinges. And so, I mean, to get into the details of it, they just weren't
Yeah.
well built.
Yeah.
So,
It was a good
Well, I'm
test.
just thinking if the design is
But we're
good,
gonna-
then
Yeah.
you could replace the materials
right.
with more exterior appropriate.
right, but an enclosure, I think, is the idea. So certainly, enclosing them is used in several places. I mean, you look at the residential
Well, I think
enclosures.
maybe people would look at it and think, oh, I put my trash over there. Or sometimes I wonder if people know what barrels are for.
Nash?
I would just like to make a recommendation, go on record saying I don't think the flip fronts are a good idea. Just leave them open space, because you've got, a 6 or 8 inch opening for that flip, just don't have it. And I would not support a box that had a cedar sidewall shingle, because those stain incredibly quickly. Anybody pushing anything in it
Oh,
is
right.
gonna have, drinks or
Yeah.
food or anything staining the whole front, and they're gonna look like garbage.
I don't think we have any that are.
Good. I just heard it mentioned as a sidewall,
yeah.
Yeah,
possibility of a sidewall, like you're sidewalling a house at $4.50 a square. No.
No.
No,
Yeah.
just a straight, clean exterior ply.
So like the trash enclosures themselves, I mean, these ones that we're talking about, we purchased off island. And like I said, they just didn't, we tried to modify them to a certain extent to have, something to really attach things, because the wind, as much as anything, they flap, and then, people push them and they get, overflow, and they get some abuse. Like you might go to Marine and you might find the ones that are standard for residential, container, hold 2 to 3 to 4 containers. You can either get them in pine or you can get them in cedar. None of them are clad in shingles that I saw. That's even more, and they're pricey.
Yeah.
So we're talking about 15 or so,
You can
16.
get that 111 textured plywood too. That would look good out there. That comes 5/8. I've used it for building a chicken house and whatnot.
Yeah, so that would be
well.
that would be the idea of somebody, if we can contract with someone to do that.
Right.
That's what we're looking at, is to look at somebody who can build us that many.
For years in traveling, I've always taken pictures of trash cans. I've always taken them back and given them to Jeff, so he could have some ideas to do something, but he never wanted to do anything other than have a barrel out there.
Ah,
But for years, I provided him with pictures.
yeah, well, maybe we'll have to share some. I have a few pictures of trash cans.
I actually do. I take pictures too when I go. Yeah.
May I tell you a quick comment?
sure.
So I am the director of culture and tourism, and David and I worked together, and I was down at Children's observing some of our activities over the summer, and I spoke with Larry before Mark came on about some of the placements of the garbage cans, and I think that Mark's got a very keen eye for placement, but one of the things I saw was the big belly trash cans, and then another unit of barrels, trash, recyclables, like tin, plastic, then glass, maybe 4 feet away from it. So it seemed like there was some space, and to spread some of the garbage dumping out a little bit. But I do think that having something as significant as the big bellies near the concession stand and near the playground where kids and parents are playing is a good idea. So I'm just wanted to make that comment. Having watched it in real time a little bit this summer, there was a little overcrowding of trash cans. It was like that line of the playground area between the walkway and the grass was all
Which is
garbage.
very efficient when you're picking it up.
Right,
Yeah.
Right.
That's fine, yeah.
right. But there's nothing again by the bandstand, and then no garbage cans again till you get down towards the beach.
The
So
bandstand
Yeah.
would seem to be important just because so many people go in there if it's
Mhm.
inclement weather or you just want to have a seat out of the sun.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think our Parks and Rec crew, they really take a look. I've seen them out there, picking up the trash. So I know part of this discussion was because of the time frame that, it's those early morning, early morning hours where we really can't control that much. Just hoping people will respect it as much as possible. But during the day, once it's back into use, I think a crew's there, and they keep a good eye on, they monitor, they
Right.
go by there.
Right.
It's a couple times, and the concessionaire is supposed to do that, whether that's increased or accented a little bit, we'll see in the IFB, but I do know, and going back to the discussion of boundaries, that my impression of the concessionaires is that they want defined boundaries because it is, as the concessionaire, any food that comes in that's not theirs, they don't want to be burdened with having to clean up. They'll be happy to do their own. But, and it's,
They don't wanna
if it
pick
looks
up
good,
pizza
it's
box.
good for you,
Pizza
but,
boxes specifically,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, so there's a,
Unless they sell pizza.
right. So, anyway, you probably already know
Okay.
a lot of that, so. But we can, certainly if there's ideas about, placement and where you want them, we certainly are open to whatever works, that's
Well,
what
the
we want
two
to make sure.
gals, Marjorie and the other gal seemed to think that having something near the bandstand, whether it
Was
was to
key.
the right or left of it, to the right, would address Jack's point as far as early morning and
Right.
danger with kids or something like that, because it'd sort of be to the right, so it'd be pretty easy to pick up
Okay.
or something like that. So you could start with something like that and then dress through the new contract and maybe put a dotted line so everybody knows.
How about a neon
Kick
sign?
that
Maybe
trash.
someone's gonna get a leaf blower.
Kick that trash.
I like your idea of making it into a game, but I don't know if that would turn into something else.
What?
There's,
Well, everything seems to turn into something else.
yes, sir.
Unintended consequences.
Right. So while you're here, Mark, and you probably don't have anything to do with it, do we have any idea what's happening with the porta potty situation at Children's Beach?
I'm sorry, point of order. We need to stick with the
sorry.
agenda here with the trash.
Okay.
It seems like placement just of the trash, if we can move that as we discuss, if that could be a good resolution, and then should we need to go further, perhaps we can readdress those issues there.
Sure. If you want to give me some feedback, we'll put them where we think they're best. And then if there's a better idea.
I make the suggestion, yes, that we put it in your hands just to start messing with some movement, just see what happens. It's not gonna happen right away. The season's gonna change, activities change, everything changes. It may have been an aberration that it was just the way it was. So have you guys continue to do strong job for what they're doing. I think Jack's point about driving in is the most serious issue I've heard this evening.
I agree.
And if there's a way that they can get around that, if not, then it's something we have to live with. But that's primarily a safety concern and not a garbage concern.
Yeah, I've noticed that just on my own, that happens for events sometimes too, that drive up, if there's a band that's going to play, they drive right up and then drop it right there. I don't know what our rule is on that. I mean,
There probably isn't a rule, it's just an issue of safety, public safety.
sure. No, and to your point, exactly that issue, because, I was nervous because the person started to back up,
Oh, yeah.
Right.
and there's kids running all over the place.
Yeah, that's the only thing.
Yeah.
If they're aware of that, we bring it up, you're aware of it,
Right.
you can mention it to them, and to the extent that it gets executed, great. If not, we'll come back, someone will tell us.
Is there somebody there at the, when there's a band playing? Do you have somebody there now? Okay, because we used to have someone there that.
Typically,
took
we
care of
have
that.
our Children's Beach coordinator there.
Okay, good.
I was just gonna comment that, both when David, schedules the acts, if you will,
Right.
we can have a conversation with them about safety, and then obviously our coordinator, we can empower them to strongly suggest they either not do it or have public safety in mind, just as a reminder, so.
As we've all seen and heard, when we take a ride on the High Line of the steamship, I know it's happened on the High Line a lot. The purser's always on loudspeaker as they come in, saying, please police your area and pick up garbage.
Yeah.
And help us keep the Gray Lady clean.
Right.
Any pre-announcement can be made for any event saying, welcome, please pick up please help us keep Children's Beach clean and check the area around you
Right.
before you leave.
Helps
Yeah.
everybody.
We can
Yeah.
also put that in our marketing materials
Okay.
for the programming.
I just know I
Just
hear that
another
so much,
reminder.
and I see people all of a sudden who were engaged in other conversations and activities that they start
It's a
picking
great
new stuff up.
reminder, yeah.
And their trash cans are right by the doors as you walk out or by the snack bar.
Mhm.
And people police themselves very quickly. They just, you make the ask,
Yeah,
Right.
and that's it.
I agree. It could be done. Yeah. Especially movie nights.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark.
All right, so we'll move on to our next guest. Greg, the Town of Nantucket Procurement Manager in regards to concession contract.
See, it's one of my titles, or one of the things people call me
One of the official.
One of the better ones.
lately. Okay, so yes, it is, the current concession contract expires on December 31st. We are a little late in getting out a bid for this because we were hoping, as a town, to be having construction at Children's Beach with the intent of having, a modified concession stand and everything else and what that may look like. Or if there's not going to be able to be a concession because of construction, we just didn't know. But of course, the $750,000 that was appropriated, as we all know, wasn't even enough to do the bathrooms. So that's just kind of sitting over here, I guess, until a decision can be made to put more funding in and really improve that concession and make it much more presentable. So we're stuck with what we are. So I dusted off the old IFB, and IFB is an invitation for a bid. That's different than the RFP. An RFP is a request for proposals, which is what we did with Jetty's Beach. The difference being with an RFP, you have more ability to choose a vendor based on quality, and you have an ability to negotiate a little bit. An IFB is a little more rigid. It's what you want, and then a concessionaire, a bidder, responds to that directly. So there's no negotiating at the end. It's chosen strictly on price, ability to meet the criteria, and in this case, revenue. I just did that because that's what the last two were done as IFB, so I just dusted them off. And there's not much to tell. I literally just handed it to Libby saying, are we moving forward with this? Mm-hmm. What are we doing? And she mentioned, Libby, the town manager, mentioned yesterday to Melissa and I that she has asked the board if, what obviously the intent is, and she was hoping today to hear something. So to answer your question, we haven't even been able to develop one yet for any feedback. So we're in that holding pattern. My gut is, yes, there's going to be a concession IFB that'll be put out, that'll be due sometime in January, which is the normal timing we do anyway. The other part was, there was a discussion earlier on in the year, because of the potential of having construction at Children's Beach, of having a mobile food unit, that the board had a public discussion on and decided no at all. Mm-hmm. So we're not even entertaining that. So that's really all I have right now. We don't even have a draft IFB for you to react to give input and feedback, but I'm hoping that I will, if I get the okay that we're doing this. That's kind of what I have.
From the last,
The last concession, yeah.
I'd just like to get an idea
Oh,
of
yeah.
what kinds of things are in there.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know much about concession stands, but I seem to hear we might be wanting to put something in regarding pickup of trash
Sure,
or something like that.
I should have brought the old one with me. I
No, that's
didn't
okay.
think about it, but I will. It's actually online, but instead of making you guys go look for it, I'll just zap it out.
Well,
But
I'm happy to look for it online if you want.
But there is in there, as a matter of fact, one of the, there's different criteria, and cleaning the bathrooms, as well as policing twice daily. It's supposed to be part of the concessionaire's responsibilities. It just comes down to enforcement,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no punitive action, they're paying us to be there, so it's not like we're withholding anything if they don't do it. So it's more of just working constantly with the concessionaire to say, you need to step up and help out. The same goes for Surfside concession and Jetty's concession.
And how long is IFB for then? If you don't have any ability to actually enforce anything, is it a 3-year, 5-year, 1 year?
The current one was 3 years, and I think that was done, was before I was doing them, in order to be on the same cycle as Surfside and Jetties, because as you may recall, there was 1 year, there was no concession there.
Right.
The concessionaire left.
Yeah.
So I think they just, Diane O'Neill is the procurement officer at the time, I think she just did it for 3. We can go up to 5 years by law. Anything over 5 years has to go to town meeting.
Now, is it possible to do a trial 1 year and then take more? Because I'm just thinking that if, like in this last case, when let's say for some odd reason a concessionaire gets upset and doesn't want to follow through and isn't sort of cooperating with requests, if you've got them signed for 5 years, they're sort of like, well, so what are you going to do? And I do think that I think Children's Beach is so public and so central to the island that I think it's important that it be respected by everyone, the concession, the people that visit, etc.
I respectfully agree with what you had to say, but from this commission's perspective and within our purview, controlling the terms of that really is not our forte. It goes back to the town. It's their contract to negotiate.
Right. I'm just thinking
any
that
of
we
the
can make a
specifics.
recommendation.
Yes and no, but it still falls back onto the town to put together the best possible contract. And as for a 1-year trial, it doesn't really benefit the vendor to come in for a short period of time, because they have set up and plans that they have to implement to get their business going.
That's the problem with a 1-year bid.
Well, it could
The
be- it
vendor
could
has
be
to go
more
out and buy
just an
equipment to do.
example of
And
trying
they're not
fit
gonna
it
put a
up
lot of
into
money into
something.
equipment for 1 year.
And we had the last vendor in for 3. Diane wrote the shorter lease because
We
of
used to do 5
the
years.
construction
The
timeline
intent
that
was
was
to do
coming
the
in.
construction.
And we didn't want someone in there. We wanted to be able to terminate that and then go right into construction. And that didn't happen. But he still went in and modified it as he needed at his expense,
Yeah,
and did the best he could with what was there.
it's true.
So is Surfside out to bid then?
Surfside's not out to bid. This was my suggestion, was that they be done concurrently to maybe make it as an incentive for one vendor to maybe do both,
Both, right.
for an economy of scale and maybe more lucrative, but,
Right,
so that one's not out yet either.
okay.
That could go out,
Right, that was a good moneymaker. They've always made pretty good money
yeah.
out there.
I was thinking that might be more attractive to lure the same vendor to
Right.
do children's.
Right.
Yeah.
They used to do breakfast there.
At
But that didn't
Surfside
have,
or
no, down at
Children's?
Children's.
Yeah, right, yeah.
All right, well, I might still go there.
Greg, if I may say, Chair, if you would send David an update when you get word from the board about
Sure.
this,
Absolutely.
when this process starts moving forward again.
Yes, absolutely.
He can send it just a blast out to us so that we're aware of it. We don't need all of the, I say this from my perspective, I may not have the commissioners,
Sure.
carry their opinion, but we don't need all the details. We just like to know what's going on.
Okay, absolutely.
And to that point, I was thinking, before the meeting, I found out about the Surfside concession just through public knowledge. It had nothing to do with any information coming back to the commission.
Mm.
That used to be one of our facilities. I know it's not under ours to, the contract isn't ours to negotiate anymore, but we still are responsible in giving permission for things to happen down there. And if there's a new vendor, it's a new relationship
Yeah.
they have to have with the Park and Rec Commission
Mhm.
as part of the application process that has to be completed for any special event that takes place down there.
Okay, I was unaware of Surfside. Okay, I can
Oh,
make
so
sure.
I said Surfside, I meant jetties, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, my mistake, I meant jetties.
Yes,
For children's and jetties.
and I agree 100%.
Okay.
Total oversight, you guys should have
My
had much
mistake,
more.
not
input.
Not
That's
Surfside,
the
but
jetty.
jetties.
No, I agree with you.
When I read that, I thought, gee, how
Yeah, nothing,
Yeah.
zero.
Then that
Came
was,
through.
I agree, and I apologize, that was 100% oversight.
And just maybe we can invite the new concessionarian
Yeah.
to meet us,
That's a
meet the
great idea.
commission and we can talk with them and say, this is what we've done in the past, this is how things have happened. We are just a step, we are one cog in the process.
Yeah.
But we are an important cog. We've been managing that property
Yeah, they need a
for many,
relationship
many,
with
many years.
Yeah.
And we'd just like to meet you, have a relationship with you, know that we're starting off on the right foot.
Absolutely, we
And-
have
And
good
give them our
contact.
support.
Absolutely, I think it's a great idea. Yeah, and again, I apologize. You saw the process as it unfolded a little bit and how chaotic it got, a little contentious.
No,
Entirely
I didn't.
forgot.
No, that was it.
I
Saw
think you're
nothing.
lucky. It was a tough process, but yes, you're absolutely right. It's a Park and Rec's property. You guys should have been involved from the beginning. Yeah.
Oh, yes, certainly.
Thank you. A point of clarification, I think Greg humbly laughed it off, but Greg is the assistant town manager and there currently is not a chief procurement officer.
Yeah.
And so I think the town's been actively looking for one since about July, August?
June, yeah.
So, I personally, every day I get the opportunity to work with Greg and see that he and Brian Turbot, the finance director, are juggling not only their normal responsibilities, but also this massive undertaking of procurement. Not that I just wanted to clarify
thank
it
you.
because
It definitely did fall through the cracks a little bit just because we just.
You mean you had unexpected responsibility placed on your shoulders?
Can you imagine?
By
Is this on again?
this town structure? I can't believe it. Mark, can you believe that? All right, thank you very much.
Ditto.
Surprise.
Do you want me to ask them to come to the next meeting or meeting after?
the Jetty's
The Jetty,
concessionaire.
I'm sorry, the Jetty's people?
If I may?
Absolutely.
Are they in place? You have a contract, they're ready to go, they're talking improvements to the structure?
They
They have a plan for next summer opening?
They have a signed contract. The current concessionaire is still there until December 31st. I mean, just to be fairness, not that there's anything going on. But yes, they've met with facility manager and today with fire department to talk about safety codes and things. So they're beginning to think about it. So I think it'd be great to have them come in. You're right. It's already behind the 8 ball.
I might say after the first of the year, because I'm sure there's a lot they're trying to take care of before
Yes.
year end. And
Yeah.
maybe shoot for a January or February date just to come in, because I don't think, unless they plan on scheduling. I know February, they've got to look at the summer schedule.
True.
As soon as you think, or if you speak with them, they think they're starting to schedule things, we need to be on board.
Yeah, especially if they're going to try to go for their liquor license, and they might want to be involved with that before they go and do that. So maybe I recommend if you guys are around a December, and maybe even before that, just because I think they're going to try to liquor license and so forth need to be to the ABCC by February. So they would be doing all their work in January. I'm just using liquor as an example, but entertainment. If they're trying to do any modifications to the building, that takes a while.
Yeah,
So.
I was thinking,
So January?
I was thinking December. If you're having a meeting in
Yes,
December,
if you're
I would,
meeting, yeah.
I would say that'd probably be good because they're going to be inundated with
And we
with
can help to
making some
support
decisions.
the discussions with them if you'd like,
You can always come back later,
Right.
and they may find that more beneficial on their part because they may come back to you to talk about their ideas after they've met you the first time. I mean, it's really just sort of this is who we are,
Right.
and we didn't.
None of us, it's your call.
Make a motion to invite them to the next meeting and table discussion for now until the next meeting. Anyone in favor?
I was thinking that.
Proposal has been made and seconded. Great,
Right,
know.
thank you.
thank
Excellent.
Okay, so that concludes our third guest, and moving on to old business.
Madam Chairman, may I thank our procurement manager
Thank you.
and assistant town manager for coming in this evening. I know your schedules Sounds like it's
so
quite
relaxed.
And we, as a commission, appreciate you taking the time to come and speak with us.
Thank you
Thank
for
you,
coming.
appreciate it. I'll get you those documents too, and I'll work with David, and I'll come when the new concessionaires are here. It's nice to get to know them.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Can I ask Libby, you're working 2 jobs now, do you get 2 vacations?
Yeah. Libby who? Who's this Libby of whom you speak?
Yeah, you should be able to get double vacation.
I'm gonna pass that along to her.
All right.
Yeah, you carry weight around here. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mark.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you. So now on to old business.
Okay.
I've got nothing to add to that, thank you. I'm not ready to.
I would like to put on the table, just to carry this over to the next meeting. I know that you are working with Cheryl on kind of discussing, going from park to park and discussing alternatives to
Some different things.
some
that we
different
could do
things
with
that we
some of
could
the
do.
different
I would
parks,
like her to
yeah.
be present for that. So I'd like to table that for tonight if that's all
Well,
right.
May I make a suggestion?
Yes.
That, if I may, that some of your ideas be presented this evening so that they
Sure.
can be put on record, and then they can be specifically put on the agenda as items for discussion for the next meeting. And our chair will be able to see that and be prepared to speak as well. So I
That
would
would work
encourage.
for me since I won't be here for a little bit.
Well, then that would be, if you won't be here for a bit, then yes, it's good that your ideas be presented this evening so that they go on record.
Yes, right, no.
You have the floor.
Okay, so, one of the ideas that I had revisit me was one that I had presented when I was first here, and that is to try and find a way to work with the science classes in the schools for the Coffin Park area. There's a small wetlands in there, there's a lot of plant diversity. I was thinking that it might be a good way for kids to not have to, I mean, I know UMass has their piece, but that's a considerable organization to get everybody up and out and doing that. Anyway, so I'd like to try and talk about that. I know, at the high school level, you're gonna have your biology classes, and I think that could work in with, and, so then, another thought that flowed from that was maybe doing, because we had talked about art in the park, and that seemed like a maybe yes, maybe no kind of a thing. But mobiles, I never know how to say that word, mobiles, the ones
Mobiles.
that sort of move, but you have to
Sure.
balance them.
Right.
Right, so there's a lot of physics and things involved in that, and that park has a lot of trees, a lot of low apple trees, kinds of things, that might be a fun thing to pursue with some group. I find, and it could just be me, but I find Coffin Park to be highly underutilized for
It is, it
the
doesn't use
size
much at all.
of
I
it.
drive by it all the time, and I walk over there once in a while when I walk in the morning.
Yeah.
I never find anybody in there.
Yeah, and that boardwalk is actually what had made me think of it. I mean, I used to do a lot of biology workshops with kids in the summers when I was in Michigan, but that boardwalk walks through quite a variety of terrain, and I thought,
Boy
this would be
Scouts.
great.
Boy Scouts built that.
They did.
Right.
Excellent. Well, good on them. Yeah. So that was one idea that I know that Cheryl had mentioned at the Essex. That's not the name of it. Winter Park. Sorry, on Essex there.
Right.
Maybe trying to do a little more to not improve the grass necessarily, but the lumpy bumpy of it, so that
Right.
kids could play ball on it a little bit more.
Should
Pick
be
up soccer or
reseeded,
something
right.
like that. Just because it is very, and then
early spring, if we could get the DPW to go in there and just to aerate it and reseed it.
Well, now's a good time to aerate it.
Right.
You do that now and run some weight over it. It would help. I mean, lawns all over the place now are being aerated now.
Right.
Before the freeze comes in.
Well, how would we go about putting it on their list?
Oh,
Can we
that,
do that?
that
or-
would be part of our facilities manager,
Right.
Mark
But we couldn't
Voigt's.
say any, can I call him, or is that something we have to have a meeting about?
You've brought up the idea now. I think it's a great idea. I don't think it's gonna be high on their priority list, but
But if they're passing by with an aerator on back of their,
well, I don't know whether they do. I see landscapers doing it on private properties
Well,
now.
see, the Delta fields need to be aerated
Yeah.
anyway, and they've done a good job with those fields this year.
Mhm.
It's the first year since they've been
Yep.
built, they've done a good job with them. And they stayed green this summer, and they got a lot of new grass growing there. They did a real good job. So if they'd put this other field in with that work, when they're doing that work, be nice.
That is done simply, Campbell, with a phone call to Mark. Saying,
Okay.
one of the things we will be discussing in future meetings, but I want to put this on your list now,
okay.
is to try to get Coffin Park included when you have your equipment together and are aerating Delta Fields and the new fields.
And then,
Do
I,
Essex at the
Yeah,
same
do
time.
Winter Park at the same time.
so then I just have a quick question about the, dog receptacles. There's a lot of people that walk their dogs in the same fields that the
Right.
kids play in, but there's no, like at the cemetery, they have that little container.
Right. Other places they do. There's nothing at Essex out there in Winter Park.
No, but
I'm
a lot of the
surprised
dogs,
either.
I would say, a lot of the dogs come from the pathways, not necessarily from the parking
Right.
lot.
Right,
It's
yeah.
people coming in
Right,
through
because people
those.
cut through there.
Right, so I was thinking maybe on the far side of the field there where there's pretty
Right.
active access with dogs to maybe encourage someone. I mean, it's not like they have to, but it would be nice if they did. Okay, so then another idea that Cheryl had mentioned, we had talked about anyway, was at the Tom Nevers, was to, I don't know, over time pursue something like a bandstand or something where you could have like Shakespeare in the Park or, a music sort of in the early evenings. I know the Tom Nevers Association, I believe you have to be out of there by 8 in the evening, 9, but I would call it 8, just for some casual. I think what I had mentioned was in Bretton Woods I used to go to, and they'd have, music, and then you bring a blanket and you put it down. You park somewhere else, but you bring a blanket, you put it down, you have a picnic, you're listen to music.
Well, that's
Maybe
the idea of the
classes
Children's
and-
Beach Park, is for doing things like that. And we do have one concert a week down there.
Right, but so she was just trying to think of how to get Tom Nevers used more publicly. And then I think I
It
had
was to
mentioned.
bring Wisconsin people in, get them.
Well, this is the thing, is that a lot of those people, from running the fair, a lot of people that come to the fair, they never go into town.
Right.
They go in to get their gas or to get their groceries, but in Wisconsin, they're their own world. But they would go to Tom Nevers, and then the other thought was, it just escaped me. Oh, I know, was to maybe float the idea with Sustainable Nantucket to do like a farmer's artisans market out there maybe on one day. Because a lot of the people, again, from Wisconsin, don't go
Right.
into town. They might go to Moore's End, but they don't really go in to the they don't go, oh, it's Saturday morning, let's go into Nantucket and go to the farmer's market.
But for Wisconsin, I should think that they'd be looking at using the water company field. Those old ball fields that were there.
Wouldn't that be great?
That'd be the place to do it.
Ooh,
And
good idea.
therefore, the Wisconsin people could walk to it.
It's getting the artisans finding
To
a second
find
day
value in
to
it.
find value,
Yeah.
because you're not going to get the rest of the island going out there.
No, no.
Well,
Right now,
exactly.
they're doing
That's
very
why
well.
That's why I think it should be
downtown
done
on
in
Saturday.
Sconset, not in Tom Nevis.
Yes.
Yeah, at
Yeah,
that
that's
field.
a great
And
idea.
they've got their own little park now in the triangle too, that they could use.
Yes,
Okay.
but parking's the problem there,
What's that?
in the triangle.
The triangle, yeah, the old triangle, they picked up as a park now they have. That's town, part of the triangle is owned by the town. And they fixed that up with some trees and a nice lawn and
Yeah.
everything, and they've cut the grass now.
I'm missing the triangle.
New Street,
Yeah,
you come into
Yes.
Sconset, you can go into Sconset straight, or you turn up New Street, that's a triangle there. Right
Okay,
there,
all
that
right.
land has been fixed up as a park now.
okay.
Yeah, I noticed that. The daffodils are in there,
Right,
and,
yeah.
yeah, that's quite a lovely.
But that water
place.
company land would be good because they could park in the water company property, there's a little parking lot there.
It's the parking that's the key.
And people would ride their bikes.
Right, and a lot of people ride their bikes or walk.
Yeah,
That'd be the place to do that.
okay. Oh.
You just need permission from the water company, I'm sure that you could work with them.
Mhm. Okay, so any of the other parks, and the only other thing that I have that I'm gonna just put out, because I'd like it to be discussed at some point, is the porta potty things at Children's Beach. I noticed that in, June, I believe it was mentioned, let's see, with the mobile food truck workshop, discussion continued briefly regarding the condition of public restrooms at Children's Beach. So to me, we brought that up at a meeting, and it seems like it was an issue before new members were on. So I just sort of like to keep following up with that and trying to figure out a way to get that. I'm not sure, who to try, and Kara's leaving, so I'm not sure who to try and keep putting that in front of, because again, I think that is a signature park, and porta potties are just,
They don't look good.
well, it just doesn't cut the mustard. If I'm a parent and I've got my little kid and I'm trying to shut the door, there's no room for two people
No.
in there, and so I just,
They need
so
to just
here's what happens.
clean up the ones that are there.
Here's what happens. If I'm with my kid, now, I don't even have kids young anymore, but if I am, and the bathrooms are busy, and I'm not taking them into the porta potty because of the sanitary situations and the lack of privacy, I take them into the water,
Right.
and everybody's peeing in the water. Now, that has to have an effect overall in that area. And so, I mean, I think if we had those dye pellets that you put in, and then whenever anybody peed in the water, you would change the color of the water.
Are you trying to bust yourself?
No, I never do that at Children's Beach.
Nobody does.
No, but I'm just thinking that it's such a popular beach, especially with children and with parents, and most of the parents don't live in the area, so they can't say, oh, let's just run home. That I just think that the porta potties have come up before as an issue.
And Campbell, they can, by discussing them this evening, we can leave them on our agenda as old business, as
Okay.
topics that we can come back to, that will always be posted with our new items on the agenda. So if anyone has something to say, they can come in and speak to it, and if we have a new thoughts, we can address it as an agenda item.
Okay.
So, thank you for bringing it. Because it was something that we talked about. It did, as things do, fall off the radar. It doesn't get carried forward all the time. And someone is responsible for making that change. As Jack said, and alluded to, we were waiting for a while. They went in there because the existing bathrooms were not functional for a while they were doing some renovations. The start of
The whole
them.
thing was that they were gonna put new bathrooms in,
Right.
3 walk-in,
Very
bathrooms
fancy.
inside.
Well,
Nice
well,
design, not fancy.
right, but I still think that is an appropriate goal. And just because we didn't come up with the money or it became more expensive, I mean, Bobby at a meeting said, oh, $200,000, we can find $200,000, you know, when he was referencing trying to find money for the wave to run year-round. A little glibly, I will add, but nonetheless, I still think that the improving the structure and the facilities is key in the future of that beach. And I don't know how to keep that on somebody's radar, but I think the town, just because they didn't have money, and now we're gonna go into a contract for 3 years or 5 years with somebody because we're not sure exactly what we're doing.
Right.
I think that could say, well, we'll figure it out 5 years from now.
The problem is they had the money to rebuild that building, they did.
Right.
And I told Cara at the time, I says, as soon as they close up at Labor Day, you gotta start right then. Well, she never bothered to put it out to bid during the summer. She waited till the fall to put it out to bid. And by the time we could put it out to bid, it was too late to do that winter. So naturally, your price has gone up another 20% or more the next year.
Well,
And
and
finally
now
got
the
so
whole-
expensive, they can't afford it anymore.
And now that everyone on the island is so busy, they're not hungry looking for work, which a few years ago, if
Right.
you could have put it out locally and found people.
Well, we
that
had
would've been-
$250,000 appropriated for restrooms there, and then they wouldn't let us build them.
So
after
I'm
we get
just
the
thinking
money.
that even if they're not going to do something about the overall building and structure, something needs, if they want to piecemeal it, like a nice New England house, they can start with the bathroom,
Right.
and they can add the kitchen. They're-
We had the HCC approve the plans, everything at one
Yeah.
time.
So anyway, I just think those should stay on.
Same thing happened in similar fashion with the, on the new fields where we had a structure
Right. Now we've got
with
nothing.
Right.
bathrooms and maybe a concession area in there and changing room and a coach's room. And it was just a concrete block structure. It was absolutely nothing fancy with an overhang, so that people could get out of the sun. Boom, just disappeared. It became, nope, we can't do it now. I don't have the money now. And then it fell off.
Well, what
So
it is,
how do you keep
they
it-
added too much to the building.
Yeah.
We asked for a
Right.
certain building, and they added more to it, and it drove the price up so high that they wouldn't build it.
Well, then maybe we should think about it that way and think about the essential functions that need to be in it. And then if that can be priced and then people want to add more and more, then one could say, well, that's lovely, and why don't you come up with the money for that part? I mean, because you're trying to work with an essentials package of what that space needs, like out at the fields. To be able to get in out of the sun is absolutely vital for some kids if they get heat stroke or,
Just getting a
You know.
water fountain, water service was difficult.
yeah.
Getting water service at the skate park for the players on the school fields
Right.
was difficult, and they finally just had a plastic pipe coming out of the ground with a spigot on the end, and now they've done a little bit more to it. They've actually attached it to the fence, I think. But it's very difficult and challenging to move these ideas forward. Everyone will agree that it's great and we need it, but it comes down to the individual effort of some of the coaches to supply coolers with ice with bottles of water in them and a sunshade beach stand, a beach tent for kids to get out. I've gone out there and I've seen a cot underneath that. We have not been able to get the town to move forward with anything else. It's just it's a big open space. It's wonderful, but
I
it's
wonder
not,
if there's
happening anymore.
issues in the town with putting up structures like that and then having them used at night.
Well, at the new fields, the gates are locked up.
Right.
At Children's
Okay.
Beach, it may be an issue. You can't leave these areas open 24/7.
Wine Festival weekend would be a nightmare.
Yes, it would. But it shouldn't take away from the benefit
Yeah,
of
Right.
such
Sure.
I mean,
such
even in
facility.
Wisconsin, they have, they do have toilet facilities. I don't know how anyone gets their kid from the beach up there, but I'm not going there. I already did
So-
my children's beach.
If I may, David, you'll just list some of these as just bullet points for all business on our agendas going forward, and that way we won't lose anything.
I
and
got
we'll
one
be able
other
to come
thing I'd
back.
like to bring up. Out at the ball fields, I noticed going there this summer, the people are parking all over the grass and tailgating. That's gonna wear that grass down. As they're watching a game on the artificial fields and they're parked around the grass,
They are, they're
leading
driving
up-
up there?
driving right up on the grass, yeah, on the regular grass.
Are you talking about the Delta fields?
Delta fields,
Gotcha.
yeah, they're tailgating there. I've found as many as 12 or 13 cars sometimes there.
And is
Didn't we
there-
have a chain across that one route?
No, it says you drive in, you drive around that little circle.
Yeah?
Well, before you get to the circle, there's grass there and
Yeah.
grass after it.
So can you
And the
bring
grass
that
in the middle of the circle there.
split rail fence along
It-
that or something?
Well, I think they just put signs up there and maybe the coaches or somebody's gonna have to talk to the people. Somebody, either that or get the police to go in and talk to the people that are parking on the grass. Because they're gonna wear that out, we're gonna have nothing but dirt.
And then they're gonna complain.
Right.
It's a dust bowl.
That's right.
So it's something between now
I
and
was
next
choking
summer we
on
need
this.
to
I
take
ate
care
my
of.
sandwich.
Right. Great. So they're all good ideas.
Okay. So with Kara leaving,
I don't know, she leaves January 1st or the end of January, do you know?
Sometime in January.
January, yeah, that's on, right, that's what it's
I'm just
January.
wondering if this is a potential spot where things fall through the cracks as things
I don't
are.
think so. You
Well,
gotta-
I
you
think
gotta
going to
have
the new
her
person.
That are, I mean, Mark is a good example. I think they've
Mhm.
got it on the ball.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I know,
And-
but Larry didn't do anything where now you got Mark here, and I think Mark would be a good one to work with.
Okay, and Paul Boucher?
Boucher,
Paul?
he's in charge of the fields.
Yeah, nice guy,
Mm-hmm.
steady. I mean,
I go out and
He-
talk with him once in a while
Yeah.
about the fields I
Mhm.
do.
he's doing the fields. Fields fell through the cracks. And Paul didn't have the knowledge to maintain the fields the way they're necessary. It wasn't that his effort wasn't there, but he just didn't have the knowledge.
Well, they send him away to school for it.
And they have done that now, and that's his focus.
Now, is he someone that would be worth it sometime in the future, having come in and just update us
No,
on all the
probably
stuff?
not.
No?
We can do that through the next,
Do that through Mark.
through Mark as the facilities
Okay,
manager. Paul is a great guy, but he'll take direction from the powers that be
above.
and actually be the boots on the ground.
Okay. So then Mark would be someone to ask about and how does the financing go for this? Is there,
Through the DPW.
it is.
Right, yes.
So then anything physical, like Kara was saying that they had gone out to Tom Nevers and they had made a list of improvements or things, the capital improvements that they wanted
Right.
to do there. That would be going through her budget?
Right.
Okay. I didn't quite get a list on that, but I was hoping that painting would be on that. Or if you're not going to be able to maintain painted trim on a building, to just go natural. I was thinking about it today even. I find that if properties look like they are, like somebody cares about them, then the people that visit
Treat them
them
better, right?
care about them.
Mhm.
But if it looks like nobody cares, why should they care? I could give them 50 reasons why they should, but
Right.
it's not going to make an impression. And I was thinking about when I was a kid in, old abandoned houses. Well, houses that people aren't in but are well cared for, nobody throws a rock through their windows. But once the property starts to deteriorate, then people, so I feel to some degree that Tom Nevers can fall into that issue if you go out and you're looking at the restroom facility there.
Right. So it doesn't get the use it used to get when we had it. So we had
Yeah.
a go-kart track out there, we had
Well, right,
basketball, we had
right,
hockey
right,
out there,
yeah,
floor
yeah,
hockey.
yeah. was,
We had a baseball league and a softball league, both out there.
yeah.
We had a lot going on at one time.
Yeah, I don't know why, maybe it's too far away. I don't know, I know that the baseball still goes on, and there's a lot
But
of pickup
softball,
games
is the
and things
baseball
like
up there
that.
too?
Maybe it's softball.
Softball,
baseball,
right,
yeah.
right.
But there's no more possessive a group of how that facility is used than the Tom Nevers Association.
Right.
Interesting.
And what they don't want to see happen there, and they've gotten very used to that. You mentioned it briefly, an 8
Yes.
o'clock timeline, things
Yes.
can't happen after 8.
No noise,
You know, you might say sunset anywhere else, it says 10 o'clock down at Children's Beach on the sign.
Right.
It's not law, it's just a sign that's put up. But for some reason, Tom Nevers Association seems to have eminent authority over things that happen.
Though I will say they are an aging group, so we might be able to make more of an impression. But, so those were my only things to try and get on under.
That's great, because now they're on record, and if you're not here to speak to them, you know, will you be able to call in?
Yes,
Terrific.
yes, I
Okay.
plan on calling in.
Great.
I'll have to use probably a landline,
What's that?
so.
Just give me a number.
You know, right? Well, for my sisters, I don't know as I have cell reception.
It's the best thing, we've got the phone right here.
Give me your number before the meeting, we'll call you on this phone.
Okay, okay, great. I will send you her number.
And these are items that could be sent to Cheryl then to bring to whichever next meeting.
Yeah, it's just when you discuss the agenda,
Sure.
that'll be sitting there on the old business.
Now, I have been creating a spreadsheet of the beaches and the parks, and it sort of mimics what you find on the website, which, you know, as, what I'd like to do is send it around, and then there are things that can be updated with it, like maybe some of the stuff is obsolete, or has changed, and so part of it mimics what's on the website, like, you know, whether it has bathrooms or handicap accessible, and who the event coordinator is for any events that want to happen at the various property. That includes the land bank, to the degree that the land bank is on the town's website as parks.
Right.
I know they've increased their parks and not all of them are on there. And same with the beaches. And then there's a section of things we might ask or check in on, you know, water fountains being one of them, you know, not necessarily things that are, well, they're not there on the website, but thoughts that we might have or want to look into for the future or something like that. So I'd be looking to get some feedback on that.
First thought there, to expand that, someone who would find that information, not all of it, but the core, interesting would be Melissa as the Director of Culture and Tourism, which is a relatively new department, Melissa Murphy.
Right.
If she had information like that, it's just, it's foundation information, it's baseline information. She might not know.
Well, and if we could get, like, on some things that we would like to encourage, if we could get other committees involved in encouraging in the same direction.
I applaud the proactive nature of it. I simply want to say that we may not see a response
No, right.
that's as timely as we would like, but it doesn't stop us from, and you from putting this information out.
Well, right. I just
And pulling
figure
it
you move
together.
forward and things happen.
I agree completely, yes.
So,
Yeah.
but anyway, so I will probably be sending that out maybe by the next meeting, so in December's meeting or something. Or, you know, for January, you can decide when you want to, if it even comes up, because I'm not sure how to go about sending it and then getting feedback on it. Like whether it's something we do, David, that's individually?
Just make sure you don't have a conversation amongst the whole committee by email.
Right.
So it has to go through David, so it can be a discussion here.
It also has to go through Cheryl too, so.
Yes,
Right,
right.
right, well,
So
I did
communicate with
send
Cheryl.
Cheryl, when I first started it, just on the, parks, cause I didn't wanna get deep into beaches. It wasn't gonna be something that was gonna be helpful. So, she seemed to think it was an interesting idea, so I will send it to her and then she sends it out,
And,
is that?
and I'll keep it on new businesses, or, I'm sorry, old business, you know,
Okay.
as something that'll be there, so that you don't have to discuss it, but, you know,
Right, and
It's there.
I'm hoping it'll just be handy for when someone's at a park and you're looking around to see what it may have or may not have, because I know things change over time, but once a town, you know, I know me, once that website's done, it's like, there,
Right.
and things change, but you don't always put anything in about it, so.
There's so many sites that the town is responsible for, that the IT is Jason, I think, and several others. I don't think they go in every day and update every day. I think they're troubleshooting. They're fixing
Well, right,
problems
or if
most of the
somebody
time.
sends something in, you,
That's really timely, that has to be posted, for instance, that type of thing for meeting agendas, that will always take priority over just updating the core base of the site.
right. Okay, so then, speaking to that, so the skate park is no longer under Park and Rec, is that, am I right there? I think I read that in the notes,
Well,
there was a
it
discussion
is
with Linda
ours, it's on
Williams.
school property.
Yeah, that's the only thing, it's on school property, the notes, we've spoken about it recently, that the school has been using the parking area to store construction materials and
Right.
equipment for
Right.
their project, and they're just doing it because it's on their property. I've gone by there a few times, it's not as bad anymore.
No,
Otherwise, there's room
they're
for
using
people
up
to
some
park.
of that material.
And I've gone by and seen that it's being maintained, a graffiti is being painted over relatively quickly.
Right, that's
And
good.
it looks really good in there,
Right.
so
So
I'm
it
pleased
has
with that.
fallen to somebody,
DPW.
Right.
DPW.
DPW
Okay.
goes in and takes care of
Right.
garbage
They
and
go and pick
roll
up the
paints
trash and take care of it.
the
Okay.
graffiti, and if any of the concrete features, as they're called, get moved or start breaking and crumbling, they get dragged out or removed. Now, it would be nice to see, and it won't happen quickly, the stand, the grandstand come back.
Right.
That was taken away. I think it was taken out to
They
new
used it in one
fields.
of the fields, right.
Right.
Yeah.
Cars now park, and maybe it wasn't used that much. And
And-
when it was
and
there,
the thing is it allows more parking now.
it allows more parking, and when it was there, it was being pushed right up against the fence,
Right.
so you couldn't even get to the front row.
Right.
But
Right.
the bigger picture, there is parking there now. I don't have a problem sharing a space as the town needs it, as they clean up, the school needs it, as they clean up their
Mhm.
product staging and organization.
Right.
And the DPW is doing a good job keeping the place clean and free of graffiti.
Right,
I just
But we
wa-
still have neighbors complaining
about noise.
about the noise,
right, yeah.
Mhm.
and that's gonna
And there
go
had
on.
been some mention about soundproof fencing or something.
Which Chief Pittman is against, because soundproof fencing puts a sort of visual block
Yeah.
from outside the fence in, and lets people hide behind some
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
features
yeah,
and do
yeah.
things.
Because the
Yeah.
police do a
Yeah.
drive-by, they don't get out and walk
Well,
around.
and it would seem as long as the noise is within the time frame that's allowed, right? Isn't
Right.
it 7 in the morning
Till
till
10
10 at night or
Well,
something?
right now, it gets dark at 4:15,
Yeah.
so
Well, right,
we
so
really
they
don't
shouldn't
have
be
a
making
problem
lot of
with
noise
it.
after that.
Well, we had
No, but I'm
people-
just saying, like, if you're getting complaints,
winner
but
for
it's falling between,
It is, but we were getting complaints from people wanting to sit out in the backyard in the evening.
right,
And that was the problem, and listening to the language coming from that was the problem.
yeah, that language, I tell you, that's a problem.
It's like
But
Wall
I think
Street.
it's my sensitive ears, because I even was watching a show on TV and someone said something and I was like, what? Did I just hear that on television? So apparently actually, we're a lot freer with that.
We hear it from the president, why can't everybody
Oh,
do it?
yes, right? Yeah, well, okay, so then I had another on, there was a representative, is someone from the Park and Rec on the CPC?
That's
Are we
me.
supposed to, okay, so you're doing that?
And I will.
Which is fine,
I
I just
oh, I'm
was
the
following
CPC
up
rep.
on.
Yes, and at our next meeting, I will have an update, more specific. But what we completed today was the allocation of funds being granted to applicants that we will put together as a town meeting warrant, getting basic voter approval to allocate the funds that are directed to us by the state to be given out to the applicants. And we've gone from $7 million or so in application requests down to about 2.6 million in monies that can be actually handed out. We have a split between historic preservation, affordable housing, and open space as our three main categories.
Okay,
And we have completed the process as of this morning and approved the distribution of monies down to the penny that we can give out. And now it's up to the town through our warrant article to
Okay,
approve it,
so that'll
which is
be a
usually
town meeting then.
usually stamped through
Mhm.
because of the 15 years the CPC's been doing it and the way the funds come. It's not town money, it's state money. So it's a relatively simple approval, but a very difficult process to go through just to get to this point.
Yeah, okay, great, I just was, thank you for that update. I think that's, I can stop taking up everybody's time.
That's all right, no problem, it's good,
Yes, it is.
Sure.
really good.
I'm glad you brought it all up, just for the reason that we can put this,
Keep it on the
we
agenda,
can
keep
keep
it
it on
moving.
the agenda. And then gives us much more flexibility about our talking topics.
Okay,
Because if we have skate park on it, we can go anywhere with skate park. If we have concessions, what's happening with Jetty's concession, we can go anywhere with Jetty's concession. If someone has something that they want to say about it, they can come in public comment and add to it, or call in and be a guest. Come in
and
and be a guest.
I was really glad to hear you say something, because when I had read the back and forth, Libby had put a letter in, and somebody else put a letter in, and I thought, geez, isn't that under Park and Rec somewhere
It was.
directly? So, but then I was like, well, maybe we don't find out till the very end, and they just sort of tell you what's gonna happen.
What
So I was
you
glad
heard.
to hear you say something, because, and I understand the busyness and
I think with Melissa and with Mark, I think we're gonna do well, we're gonna do good. I
and
think
Melissa
Melissa's doing a
does,
good job.
she does what?
She's director of culture and tourism.
Some of Park and Rec stuff has been handed over to them to operate,
Now, is
like
this,
Children's Beach and
does this
stuff like
take
that.
over, is this at the visitor services place?
Right,
So this
yeah.
is what Kate was?
It's
or-
what Visitor Services was,
If it's what it was?
right,
Okay.
and added a little more, they've added Park and Rec
Yeah,
and
it's
cultural.
three divisions in there, or two divisions, which visitor services is a part of.
Right,
Okay. But so she would be someone that could work with us or with Cheryl to follow up on any
Right.
creative ideas Cheryl may have about
Absolutely.
developing.
Or you, Maggie, or Jack, or me. Yeah, she's just a new, good town point person who hasn't become hardened yet
She's
to
new.
the reality of how difficult things can be.
Well, I think if you allow time, things aren't quite as difficult as if you want them done already.
Any other old business to bring up,
No, nothing
discussion? Then I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn for the
So moved.
evening.
Second?
I agree.
So the meeting is ended.
Thank you very much.
And the
Thank
next
you.
meeting